Revelation is one of the most exciting books in the Bible. As you read it, I want you to see that it is, at its heart, a drama, complete with characters and settings and conflicts that are resolved at the end of the book. Now, as you know, Revelation is a special kind of narrative because it has a lot of fantastic visions and symbolism. But again, fundamentally, the book of Revelation is a dramatic narrative trying to tell a story. In this video, we're going to focus on chapters 1 through 3 because these three chapters all go together. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 8 serve as the book's prologue. And if there's a prologue, then that means there's an epilogue. Sure enough, in Revelation 22, the last chapter of Revelation, beginning in verse 6 of chapter 22, we find parallels between the beginning and end of the book. For example, chapter 1, verse 1 says that God gave Jesus this revelation to show his servants things that must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel. In chapter 22, verse 6, we're told that God has sent his angel to show his servants what must soon take place. Chapter 1, verse 3 parallels closely with chapter 22, verse 7. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of this prophecy. In verse 4, God is described as the one who is and who was and who is to come. This speaks to God's eternality. He always has been and always will be, and that means he is all-powerful. These same words are used again in verse 8, binding verses 4 through 8 closely together. In between verses 4 and 8, Jesus is described, and lofty terms are used to describe him as the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the ruler of kings on earth. Jesus, he says, loves us and has freed us from our sins by his blood. John the Apostle wrote the book of Revelation. In my edition of the Bible, it says correctly that this book is the revelation to John. Verse 1 says, the revelation of Jesus Christ. According to verse 9, John received the revelation of Jesus while on the island of Patmos. In verse 11, John identifies the book's recipients. They are the 7 churches of Asia Minor, and he names the cities: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, or sometimes you'll see it appear as Pergamus, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Throughout chapter 1, but especially starting in verse 12, there are numerous powerful descriptions of Jesus. You know, in the Bible, Jesus is described to us as a baby, as a 12-year-old, and as a 30-year-old. Here in Revelation chapter 1, verses 12 through 20, Jesus is presented to us in a glorified state. I want you to get caught up in the drama with me for a moment. You're John on the island of Patmos, a barren wasteland that tradition tells us the Roman Emperor Domitian banished John to. In verse 10, John says, I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet blast saying, write what you see in a book and send it to the 7 churches. John turns and expects to see the person addressing him, but that's not what he sees at first. When I turned to see who was speaking to me, I saw 7 gold lampstands. And standing in the middle of the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man. He was wearing a long robe with a gold sash around his chest. His head and his hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like flames of fire. His feet were like polished bronze refined in a furnace, and his voice thundered like mighty ocean waves. He held 7 stars in his right hand, and a sharp 2-edged sword came from his mouth, and his face was like the sun in all its brilliance. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as if I were dead. Jesus, in a glorified state, is standing in the middle of 7 gold lampstands, which represent the 7 churches of Asia Minor. That's how chapter 1 ends. And then in chapters 2 and 3, each of these churches has a short letter from Jesus addressed to it. Each of these letters has the same basic pattern. They start with the same greeting. To the angel of the church in blank, write, and then there's some characteristic of Jesus provided, identifying him. These characteristics come from chapter 1, showing us clearly that chapters 1 through 3 all go together. For example, in chapter 2, verse 1, when Jesus identifies himself to the church at Ephesus, he says, "This is the message from the one who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, the one who walks among the 7 gold lampstands." Those are descriptions of Jesus that come directly from chapter 1, verses 16 and 13, respectively. In every letter, Jesus then says, "I know your works," and proceeds to talk about that church. Typically, he says something positive about them, followed by something negative. And each of these statements is followed by a promise. To the one who conquers, or as some translations render it, to the one who overcomes, to the one who is victorious, Jesus makes a glorious promise. Jesus ends each letter by using the same expression, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches." Today, please read Revelation chapters 1 through 3 together.